Joshua, and we're on chapter 22, verse 10, where, if you remember from last week, what happened was the Yehoshua was sending home Reuven, Gad, and half-tribe Manneshe, and he said to them, you served for 14 years, and we're all set, now you can go back home. And they had a little hesitation from going home because they saw how wonderful the land was, and only because their families were on the other side of the Jordan, and God had given that side of the Jordan to them. So at that point they went. Again, even though, and I refer you back to last week on the tape where it said, where we went through that, what would have happened if they would have stayed over. What was the problem, and so on and so forth. So if you really want that, the last 10 minutes of that class from last week, you can hear that whole harangue that I give. I just don't want to go through it again. So there we are, verse 10. Vayavo'u el Galilot HaYarden, and they came to the regions of the Jordan, Asher be'eretz Canaan, that was in the land of Canaan, or that is in the land of Canaan. Vayivnu b'nei Reuven uvnei Gad v'chatzi Manneshe sham mizbeach al Yarden. So what happened was, when they got there, the b'nei Gad, Reuven, and half-tribe Manneshe built a mizbeach on that side of the Jordan, mizbeach gadol limareh, a big mizbeach for appearances. That's what they want to say. Mar'eh could be to look upon or for appearances. It's from the Shoresh Resh Aleph Hey, which means to see. So you make that causative, cause to see, so that it appears or to look upon. So what's going on there? Why would they, when it says, interesting enough, it says they came to the regions of the Jordan that was in the land of Canaan. So where are they? Are they home, or are they still in Canaan? That's the question. The west side, right? So it says, Rosh Limo Bisfada Ever Yardim, Hamaravi, they were on the west side of the Jordan, from the land of which is from the land of Canaan. And then it says Lamareh. So what does Lamareh mean? I mean, they built a gigantic altar there for the Mareh, to look upon. Yeah, so
a
memorial. Why are they building Mizbeach? Why are they building an altar there? Where's the only place you're supposed to have an altar?
What is it, when it says Mizbeach, that means a sacrificial altar for animal sacrifice?
Seemingly. Right.
And this one is too big, though, for
Why is it too big?
He said, according to what they're saying here, it's a large altar just for a show place. It's not a huge one, or I mean, it's not a regular sized altar.
Large one.
Well, the altar in the temple, in that days, those days, the Mishkan wasn't small either.
No, but I mean, this must have been huge. If it was large in comparison to that one.
It doesn't say in comparison; it just says a large one.
Just a large one.
You are making the assumption.
What would a small be? A small one.
A small one be a little barbecue.
Ah, okay.
Close
to the ground, in other words.
Right. Or it could be a little taller. It could be a regular. They go back to your biblical stories where there was a little thing that you put it on. It doesn't have to be a major thing, but they made a big one for so that.
Well, apparently, it was for something other than animal sacrifice, even though they're calling him Mizbeach, huh?
So that's what the Mesilas David says. He says, Lamare enayim, it was to be for the appearance of the eyes, for what the eyes will see, lola ola v'zevach, but not for the to bring offerings on it. That's what the purpose was. Now, I want you to think, if I'm seeing you build something, do I know why you're building it?
Not unless you ask.
Right. So when I see it being built, all I see is a Mizbeach. And it looks just like the Mizbeach that we have in our Mishkan. So if it looks like that, I don't think you want to come home anymore. The biggest problem with building synagogues is it means you're not coming home. When you make a break off synagogue and you get out of your storefront, you actually put in a storefront. You're just angry at the rabbi. You're angry at one of the congregants. You're angry at whomever you're angry at. So you go to a storefront. You make a little war, and you get it over with. But once the war is over, everybody feels they can come home, right? Because there's only a storefront, or only somebody's house. Fine. So then what you do is you come back. Sooner or later, everybody comes back, and that's the end of it. On the other hand, once you invest and you put down money and you make a separate place to pray, the odds are heavy that you're not going back. That would make sense, right?
Yeah.
I invested. And once we invest, we invest. So that's why, again, when synagogues go up, it's a real point of tension for the communities. Imagine opening up another school.
It's the same with any religion.
Same with any
breakaway like that.
Don't get out of religion. Let's say I have a store, and you know the best thing was, I'll use Boston for this. In Boston, in Brookline, Massachusetts, they had a Chinese place called kosher Chinese, called Shalom Hunan. It was from New York, really. That's where they came from. But they came to
Chinese.
Kosher Chinese. Wonderful stuff. Great. I don't like Chinese to begin with. So now you make it kosher, it's even better. Okay. Jews love Chinese food. God only knows why Jews love Chinese food. I don't know. I personally don't think it's great food, but okay, fine. It's I'd rather have my steak and potatoes. That's who I am. I don't need all these other things. But anyway, Shalom Hanan had lines out the door. When it first opened, I don't know if you were there. No, you were gone already. It had lines out the door with literally circling the building. That's how many people.
The original Chinese or the second place? What are you talking about?
The original place. Original place.
There was a Chinese place and we were there.
You were? I didn't know you were there. Okay, fine.
Yeah, went there one
so
time.
Good. So we had it, and like I said, the lines were around the block. It was unbelievable. Dignitaries coming, blah blah blah. Okay, fine. The Chinese waiters saw that success.
Oh.
And they said, these Jews are nuts.
Let's open up a couple more.
Right. So they said, if this guy is making so much money and they're around the block. So it didn't last that they would be around the block. It was a grand opening. But it lasted for a good long time. And people kept coming. There were always lines getting in there. Fine. And so what happens? They said, if they're successful, so what we'll do is we'll open up, and we'll all share in the wealth, as it were. No. That's not how Chinese work. So the Chinese guy said to him, no, you can't close up. You can't open up. Don't open up. They said to him, why? They said, if you open up, then we'll split the audience. If we split the audience, none of us will have business. This doesn't work. It is not New York. This is Boston. You don't have the play for this. So they listened for a little while, but of course the owners made the money and the poor workers, what do they make? They make whatever they made. Okay. And one of those waiters used to have a restaurant, so he never gave that up. And he, what do you call it when you steal somebody? Besides stealing, pirated, whatever they call it, poached. They poached. He poached. He got the cook, the head cook, to agree with him. And so, after 3-4 years, they moved. They opened up and they moved to the center of town. Of the Jewish neighborhood, center of the Jewish neighborhood.
Brookline?
Of Brookline, right on Harvard Street or opposite the bookstore. Ooh. And opened up. Okay, so you have two stores, right? You have Shalom Hunan down there, you have this one up here, fine. They didn't both survive, only one survived. And it wasn't Shalom Hunan. Shalom Hunan lost.
The original one?
The original place lost.
Really?
Yeah, they lost. Because they were down too far. They were too far into that area. So if I'm going to move into the major area where everybody is. And so people, even though there wasn't parking for the most part, so they still made their money. But it was true. You could not support two of the same place. So that's, again, anytime you have this competition of, if I'm going to have my place and you're going to have yours, as they used to say in the Highlander, only one will survive. Okay, I'm using a lot of TV programs here. One. There will only be one, right?
Or neither.
No, one had to survive because he had to become the immortal. That's how it was.
Yeah.
Well, actually, mortal. That's how the thing worked. It was immortal already. He had to become mortal. But it's. I refer you to the Highlander.
Yeah.
Okay, these three. Only watch the first one. The other two are not great. Okay. But anyway, that's what it's talking about. So here they were also concerned. If you're going to break off from us by making this altar, that's appearances. You obviously don't want to come home. So we're going to have two peoples. Not a good situation. That's what we'll get into. What happens is Yud Aleph Yishma'u, with that background, V'yishma'u b'nei Yisrael lemor. So b'nei Yisrael heard saying, Hine vanu v'nei Reuven v'nei Gad v'chatzi shever hamanashe et hamizbech amul eretz Canaan. They heard that, behold, b'nei Reuven, Gad and half tribe of Manneshe. By the way, watch the Hebrew. You have to. It says banu. The verb is first, then all the nouns. Okay, so they built vanu. They built et hamizbech, the mizbech, amul eretz Canaan, opposite eretz Canaan, el galilot hayarden, to the regions of the Jordan, el aver b'nei Yisrael, to the side of b'nei Yisrael. So they heard what was going on. Very nice. Okay, what happens after that? Vayishma'u b'nei Yisrael again, it says. Vayishma'u b'nei b'nei Yisrael heard. Vayikahalu, and kol adap in Israel Shiloh, and they all of the congregation of b'nei Yisrael assembled to Shiloh, la'alot aleihem lasava, to go up against them with an army. Woo. You don't fool around here. The board of directors is coming out strong. Okay, so the Rashi says, what does it mean to go up against an army? Lefi shenezru habamot mishenigva hamishkan b'shilo. Because what happens is, once the Mishkan, Rashi explains, once the Mishkan went up in Shiloh, then it was forbidden to have a bama or a mizbeach, two types of altar, anywhere else. It's only one altar. We only have one God, one priest, one altar, one temple. The other is, you can't have numbers of temples. The temple or Mishkan. While the Mishkan is here, you can't have a break off.
So going back to the previous verse, so they built this as a showpiece to look upon.
Oh, because what happens is, the author of Yehoshua is telling us what the intent was. But Bnei Yisrael don't know the intent.
Okay, in other words, they built it, it was a symbolic thing. It wasn't going to be used.
Correct. They built it for that. But Bnei Yisrael heard what they did, and they jumped to the conclusion. And why? By the way, how could that have been avoided?
That they sent somebody to begin with instead of just jumping to a conclusion that this is
the other way. The other way. Go the other way. You're blaming.
Oh, if Gad, not all those.
Right. God, Reuven, and half tribe of Manneshe should have sent a communique to Yoshua, the leader, or whomever the leader was, to say, this is our intent. We want you to know what we're doing up front. We want your agreement to it, and that's the end of it.
Is it a lot, guys? Since you can't build another Mishkan, you can't build another Beis HaMikdash from the real one, is it allowed to build this showpiece in the first place?
Correct. So that's what they should have asked. Interesting enough, when it comes to the Torah Center, I love picking on us. When it comes to the Torah Center, we are the break-off. Okay? We never were the break-off. It's not a separate shul. We're supposed to be an arm of the synagogue. Okay? The HSC. And we were the outreach. We're reaching out to people. And so much so that the founder, his son-in-law, went to the rabbi of HSC and said, this is what I would like to do. Do I have your blessing? And the rabbi said, yes. Gettinger.
Previous rabbi.
Right. Previously on this soap opera. But the rabbi, according to everybody, actually, I think everybody's agreeing to that, said, yes, no problem. This outreach, tremendous. Go ahead. And the point was, by the way, why would you do outreach outside the synagogue?
Because they weren't doing it there.
Besides that, because
it's one more comfortable setting.
Right, it's a non-threatening environment. If you want to do outreach, right, if you want to do outreach, the best way to do is to get out of the synagogue.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have gone to the synagogue.
Correct. When it comes to a house, we'll go to a house. Yeah. You know, so you can be in a house and you can learn. And so if you have services here, it's very nice. If you don't. But that wasn't the purpose. The purpose was to be outreach. The purpose was to get youth. The purpose was to really reach out to people and say, let's learn together as Jews.
Have a cup of coffee.
Have a cup of coffee. That was the whole thing. That's why I used to have a couch in here. Yeah. It was a whole setup. It was unbelievable when I first came. But that was how you avoid the machloket. How do you avoid the argument? It didn't help that much, but at least it was an attempt. You know, so if Bnei Gad, Reuven, and Manneshe would have done the same thing, would have said, okay, Yoshua, we love you, we love Bnei Israel, we love Eretz Israel, and we want to maintain our connection to Eretz Israel, as they will say, that's why we're building this. Do we have your permission? And of course, who knows what Yoshua would have said? Maybe he would have said, no, you can't do it. He could have said it. But maybe he would have said, go ahead, I hear what you're talking about. Very nice. We don't know what he would have said.
Up to this point, you should have not even involved in it. He didn't even know about it, does he?
Nobody knew. Which is, they put it up and that was it. You know, it's, again, you're building an edifice. So they didn't know why they were building the edifice. That's what they were trying to figure out. But they were ready for war because this was an offense. As Rashi explains it. So then it comes to... And the Metzudas David says that... I'm sorry, he didn't say it there yet. He'll say it in a few minutes. He says here, they sent for... going with Rashi, that they went for war. Im lo yitkanu... Yitaknu et ashir avoto ki yehem chashu she'asuvhu ola v'zavach, because they were, again, what we're going to do, because they thought they were going to war, because they thought that they were going to make the korbanos there, the sacrifices there. Okay, so now they're ready for war. What happens? V'yishlechu b'nei Yisrael el b'nei Reuven v'nel b'nei Gad v'el chatzi sheva Manneshe l'Eretz Gilad. So they didn't just go to war. What they did was they sent a, what do you call it? A group, a party, investigative party there. How do you call that? When you send a group to check everything out.
Fact-finding mission.
Fact-finding mission. Thank you. And they sent. So Bnei Israel sent to Bnei Gad, Reuven, and the tribe of Manneshe, El Eretz Gilad, to the land of Gilad, at Pinchas ben Elazar HaKohen. They sent Pinchas, the son of Elazar the Kohen. Why Pinchas?
Oh, he was the zealous one, right?
The zealous one. He was the one who had saved Bnei Israel from the plagues. He was the one who went in. Caleb. He was the one who went in with Caleb to check out Jericho. He has a long history. He's also the son of Elazar, the Kohen, who was the son of Aaron, the Kohen. So he has good lineage. And what happened? So he was the head of the fact-finding mission. Vyasar and the Yodala, Vyasar and the Siyamimo, and he had 10 other princes or leaders with him. Nasi Echad Lebeit Av, one leader to each house of the fathers, l'chol matot Yisrael, to all the tribes of Israel, v'ish rosh beit avotam, and a man who was the head of their father's house, hema alpha Israel, which was among the thousands of Israel. So basically, what's happening is he has 11 people. Instead of bringing the whole army over, let's get ready for war. Let's get on it, because what's going to happen? If the whole army would land on the shores of Tripoli, as it were, if they would have landed on the shores of Jordan and getting ready for attack, what would have happened?
War.
Would have had war.
Yeah.
We don't know why we're fighting, but we would have had war. So instead of doing that, what they do is they send Pinchas with 11 fact finders to have a bit of a discussion with in their minds, their wayward brothers. So they send it before they go up. That's what the Metzudas David is explaining. Fine. So now, I just want to give you a thing from the commentary digest who runs through this. He has a very nice commentary, or whatever it is. So it says they were going to go up to war against them if they would not rectify their error, for they thought that it was made for sacrifices. And why? As Rashi explained, for high places have been banned since the establishment of the tabernacle of Shiloh. The sacrificial service was performed in one place only, in Shiloh, where the tabernacle had been set up. This was to impress upon the people the oneness of God. When they violated this ban and built high places, they were gradually drawn into idolatry until the prophet Jeremiah denounced them by saying, "For the number of your cities were your gods, O Judah." Therefore, the reaction was swift to the seeming wrong, just as in the case of the concubine of Gibeah, lest this transgression spread throughout all of Israel. And then also, the prophet complained in Hosea. The prophet complains of the indifference and the complacency of the people of his day, in comparison to the reaction at Gibeah. So, what you're seeing here is their shock and amazement that, first of all, their brethren would seemingly do something that was so wrong, and the reaction was, if this is really what's going on, we're wiping you out. But if it's not, but we have to find out what's happening. But we're ready to go to war against you. That's how serious this transgression is. And that won't continue to happen as time goes on. So we're on 15. Oh, I'm sorry, a little more? So a little more. It says, Pinchas said there was a suspicion that Reuven and God wished to demonstrate with the building of this altar both political and religious independence from Shiloh. Therefore, Pinchas was sent to plead the case of the central altar and the 10 princes to ensure the political unity of Israel under Joshua. Okay, that's what's going on. So that's why they have to send everybody. Let's keep us together. We really want to be a family. We're not really interested in fighting. Ve'yavo el b'nei Reuven ve'el b'nei Gad ve'el chatz shevet Manneshe el Eretz Gilad. So they came to b'nei Reuven, Gad, and the half tribe of Manneshe to the land of Gilad. Vayidabru itam le'mor, and they spoke with them, saying, Ko amru, kol adap Hashem. Thus says all the congregation of God. Maha ma'al hazeh Hashem altem belokei Yisrael. What is this rebellion or treachery that you have done, that you have rebelled against the God of Israel? Lashuv hayom, to return, to turn away this day. Me'acharei Hashem, from after Hashem. B'venotechem lachem mizbech, with you building, when you're building this altar, the meradchem hayom v'Hashem, that you are rebelling, that you might rebel against the Lord this day. That they come out strong. I mean, guns blazing.
Well, I mean, they heard about this altar and they go up there and see it, and so that sounds like a normal reaction.
Well, the normal reaction would have actually been, can you explain that?
Oh, well, all right. So, in other words, they're accusing him immediately of turning away.
And they're going to each one separately. It seems like
no, they're going to all three.
So they went to children of Reuben, then to Gad, and then also to.
No, it's all three. They're going to the leaders of all three.
So they're going each one independently.
No, they're saying pull together.
You'd think they'd be a little softer.
No, they're saying pull together. We're addressing all of you at once.
No.
They're not.
It doesn't sound that way.
No, but that's what's going on. They didn't want to just when the author of this doesn't want to say they went to each individual, because you're right. If I would have gone to Bnei Reuven, then Reuven would have said what they said, and I could go home. The fact of the matter is that they were all together in this thing, so they would have summoned all the leaders. They're not talking to the entire tribe. They're talking to the leaders. So we have our 10. Bring your people. Let's sit down at the table, and we'll go and have a cup of coffee. Forget the coffee. We're attacking you right away. Why do you do this? You're rebelling against God. Do you not understand this? And by the way, I want you to know. I want you to make note of this too. It doesn't say Kol Amru Kol Adat Bnei Yisrael. It doesn't say the congregation of Bnei Yisrael. It says the congregation of God. I mean, talk about coming over with the force of religion. The congregation of God, and you're not. But we're not the congregation of God. That's the indication too. So they're coming across.
Well, apparently, the people in Shiloh must have strongly believed you are not allowed to build any other altar, period. Apparently, why they came on so strong.
And they are right. You're not supposed to build another altar.
No.
A functional altar, anyway.
Yeah.
Right? You're not supposed to. So that's the end of it. So you're not supposed to. And by doing that, again, if you would have asked permission, and it would have been granted, there's no question. What we all do, let's understand what we do as Jews. What
do they call it? Mar Zion.
Mar Zion, right. But
So
we all,
even if you're building, I'm just only looking at it. I'm never going to use it, but what are other people going to think when they see it?
Correct. That's one. Number one. Number two is, as Jews, we tend to believe that our opinion is correct.
Doesn't anybody? Everybody.
I don't know. I don't know. That's true. But I'm just saying, looking at us, I'm being very self-critical. Looking at us, we individually believe that our interpretation of the law
legalistically
is correct.
I'm right, you're wrong.
No. We're not saying you're wrong. We're saying if you would understand why I was doing this, you would agree with me too.
Okay.
That's what we're saying. That if you would just understand where I'm coming from, you also would do the same thing. That it's like I'm not doing anything wrong. There's no wrong here. That's where we come from. Then what happens is somebody brings something up, and we realize that we have to backpedal a little. So that's when we ask our rabbis, right? That's how it works. You think you're doing good on Shabbos? Somebody comes into your house, whatever you're doing, somebody comes into your house and says, how can you do this? Nobody does that. Whoa. And you run to your rabbi. Can I do this? And the rabbi says, why not? Nothing wrong with it. So then you have ammunition. Okay, bro, my rabbi said yes. But can you imagine when the rabbi says, you've been doing what? How can you do that? I thought you were religious. Okay, so then you're in trouble. But and you have to backpedal and stop. But that's what I think was going on here. That the people thought that they took it literally. I'm not allowed to build an altar for sacrificial purposes. Fine. So I'm not building it for that. I'm building it as over here to remember that we're part of the same people. So we're looking to that symbol to say that when we want to do a sacrifice, we know we have to go to Shiloh. And when you people tell us, again, I'm way ahead of the story here, but when you tell us, how can you come over? You're not part of our congregation, as it were, because you're the break-off. So then we'll say, no. Do you see the altar on our side? It's the exact same appearance, which means we built it so we could always remind you that we're all one people. If that works, fine. If I'm going to build a synagogue, I'm going to. And by the way, how do you stop a break-off? It's an interesting thing. If I want to move my synagogue, The synagogue's in a bad area of town, right? So now I want to move it. I can't close down my synagogue because you have people who are still, the old timers, have their homes there, but nobody's moving in. So what I do is I open up a satellite of my synagogue in the new part of town, call it the satellite synagogue, as it were, and there's no break off. I have two synagogues under the same rubric. No break off there, so everybody's happy. You understand? Mm-hmm. That's how you successfully move a synagogue.
I think Baron Hirsch did that in Memphis, huh?
I don't know. That I can't tell you. But I know some people want to do that, and I thought it was a brilliant idea because nobody's upset with you for opening up your own synagogue, even though you basically did. And those two are not really going to get together except for maybe smachot or something like that. But otherwise, they're not going to get together. So the rabbi, or maybe they even have to hire two rabbis, Israel, one here, one there. But the bottom line is that you're not calling it a break-off because it's just an arm. Like I said, originally, Torah Center was supposed to be an arm of, or somewhat, not arm of it. It was never really connected to the show. But it was supposed to be, you come here and then you graduate, as it were, to go either there or to go to some other place. Now, again, we're outreach, so not everybody's comfortable in the Orthodox world, but if they connect with any part of the Jewish world, it's better than being part of, something, not being part of anything. So that's why you had this sort of thing where we were eclectic with our groups, and it became. How many years? 10 years later? 10 years later? 10 years later, we're now having services. When it developed into something else, that's fine. I mean, that's natural growth. And that's the way things work. But it was never, again, from the outset, from what I understand, it was never supposed to be a break-off. And that's why probably it was successful. Because it wasn't seen like that. Okay, but that's really what they were doing. Okay, so that's what is being brought down here. So now they come and say there's treachery here, and so he says they spoke with them. They spoke with them to hear what they would reply to the accusation. Alternatively, that's why they start so strong. Alternatively, the Israelites did not suspect their brethren of erecting an altar for idolatrous purposes. They suspected, however, that the existence of an altar, other than the central altar in Shiloh, would eventually lead to idolatry. That's something else. We say in Pirkei Avot that you have to, it's a haroed and nolad. I have to see the outcome of the actions. That's what we have to do. When we look at something, I should always see the outcomes. If I'm a chess player, I can't play like I'm paying, well, even a checker player has to see more than one move ahead of him. But a chess player is famous for seeing 15, 20 moves ahead of him. Not just one move. And so that's what's going on here. They said, if you have this altar, even if we don't suspect you, it may be generations later, one generation later, that you'll decide I don't have to come back home. So that's another way of looking at it. That's a positive way. So then it says, what treachery is this? The 9.5 tribes considered also the suspicion that the 2.5 tribes had constructed this altar for idolatrous purposes. They therefore asked, what treachery is this that you have committed against the God of Israel? Do you mean to use it as an altar for worshiping pagan idolaters, to turn this day away from God, to cease worshiping God, and to worship instead pagan deities? Is that what you want? So, like I said, they're attacking on many different sides. You have some people who think, it's not a break-off, but it could potentially become a break-off, or you're a break-off. You're treachery against Hashem. You have different groups, but and this doesn't change. This concept doesn't change. Again, if they would have asked originally and got permission, it would have solved a lot of problems. If, even though they didn't ask, if they would have come over and talked to the board of directors, Bnei Gad, Reuven, and Manneshe, then one board of directors to the other board of directors and say, what's going on here, gentlemen? What are we trying to accomplish? Again, in a friendly manner, it also would have been less confrontational. But this is how we do it. We confront. And when they confronted, they gave it all up. So he says, Hama'at 17, Hama'at lanu et avon ha'po'or, is the iniquity of Po'or so small, asher lo hotarnu mimenu ad hayom hazeh, that we have not become pure or cleansed from it till this very day. Negev ba'adat Hashem, and there was a plague in the congregation of the Lord. Now here's an interesting reference. They threw up Po'or. What happened in Po'or? Remember?
Is there a war for?
No. What happened was the Bnei Israel, after Bilam had tried to curse them, and he blessed them 3 times. So the king Bilam said to Balak, their God does not like licentiousness, so get them involved in that. So they sent the girls over, and some of the Jews fell for that. 24,000 Jews died in a plague. It was Pinchas who would stop the plague by killing Zimri with Cosby, throwing the spear, and it pierced them during the act, and the whole wonderful thing that went to that, and the plague stopped. So they're bringing that the incident of Po'or up. And they're saying, if you're going, look what happened there, and we don't want that to happen over here. And another thing, you also have the other concept of Kol Yisrael Reuven zeh b'zeh, that it would be one person causes it, and we're all punished for it, and we still haven't been come cleared. There's still that remnant of that sort of action going on. So we don't want that. The truth is, if I was them, I would have picked on I. The son of I, right, with Achan. That would have been better, because that's one guy does it. So one guy does it. We're all punished. So, but they're okay. But you can't argue on what they said. They went for Po'or. Po'or is still very much of the place. So, and it was saying, but there was, and that may be why, by the way, that they're using Adat Hashem instead of Adat B'nai Israel. Yeah.
You said Pinchas killed him with the spear.
What he did was he threw the spear. Pinchas threw the spear. It went through the tent entrance, and Cosby and Zimri were involved in sexual relations, and the spear went through his private organs and into her private organs. There are pure miracles here. There's pure miracles, because no spear is going to, no matter how sharp, it's going to pierce that much and catch you in the act. Yeah. So, and that's when the plague stopped, because he was zealous for Hashem. He didn't care that Cosby was the daughter of the king, and he didn't care that Zimri was the head of the household, the head of his tribe. He didn't care.
Zimri was the head of which tribe?
Zimri, the house of Shimon.
Okay.
So he didn't care about that. God says this is not right. He throws a spear, and like I said, a lot of miracles happen, but it kills him, and that's what ends off the plague. But like I said, that's why he could also be saying Ba'adat Hashem, and not Ba'adat B'nai Israel, not the congregation of God versus the congregation of B'nai Israel, because that plague was against Adat Hashem. Everybody who was involved in that, or not stopping it, was being punished. So that could be an answer to why it's Adat Hashem. Okay, let's continue. So it says 18. Ve'atem teshvu hayom, and you will turn away this day me'acharei Hashem from Hashem. Va'ya'atem timrudu hayom b'Hashem, and you will rebel today against Hashem. Umachar, and tomorrow el kol shel yiksof. Then what's going to be is Hashem will be angry at the whole congregation of Israel. because you turned away. Again, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh. All of Israel is combined. We have communal responsibility. So if you turn away from God today and we don't stop you, we don't put up a stink, then He's going to be angry with all of us who didn't put up the stink. So this is also, there's a lot of ethical teachings, a lot of rebuke is coming from this incident. That if you see somebody doing something wrong and you have the ability to influence them so that they will do that which is right, and you don't, you're guilty. And Hashem will punish you. You hear? You know what I'm saying? So that's very important. Whereas if you don't have the ability to stop them, well, there's nothing to talk about. But if I do have the ability, or I can garner my forces together to cause me to have the ability, so then I should do that too. Which is why civil unrest, not what they're doing in Baltimore, but it's correct, when people would do these protest marches, peaceful protest marches, when they would do that, that's fine. That you should do that. You should stand up and say, what is going on is wrong. Yes, our job. Again, I'm not looking for the people to go out and attack, burn. That's ridiculous. That's forbidden. But when it comes to, we have to protest what's happening because it's going against Torah, not because we think it's wrong, by the way, because it's going against Torah. If it's something goes against Torah, so that's when we have to speak up. If it doesn't go against Torah, that's your choice. I'm not going to get whether or not a person wears seatbelts. Leave me alone. I'm not going to stop protesting that. Or if they went 35 and 40 miles an hour, I'm not going to protest. If they got caught, deal with the time to get your ticket. But it's the concept is you have to protest or speak up when you have that ability to do so. Okay. So he says, and all because we're going to be punished otherwise. So and also, however, if the land of your possession is unfit, is spiritually impure, ivru lachem. So then, guess what? Pass over. Come on over. Come home. Ivru lachem el eretz achuzat Hashem. Come over to land that is Hashem's inheritance, that He took a stronghold over. Asher shachan sham mishkan Hashem, that the mishkan of God, the altar of God, the tent of God, is dwelling there. Ve'achzu b'tochenu, and take hold of it in our midst. Vashem al timrodu, don't rebel against God. Ve'otanu al timrodu, and don't rebel against us. Bivenotchem lachem mizbech, when you build this altar, mibalade mizbach Hashem Elokeinu, besides the altar of Hashem our God. So here's what they're saying. What's the matter?
This territory was given to them. Now they're saying, come on over to our side of the territory, and
they're saying, remember what happened? They're saying you built an altar.
right.
Okay, you didn't ask, you didn't tell. There's no ask, don't tell policy. You took.
Yeah, but they're also insinuating that the land is not good now.
They're saying if there's an if statement here. If your land, if the land that you wanted is really that unfit, that you don't feel God's presence, come on home. If you remember, you built an altar. Well, you shouldn't have built an altar. You can't build an altar outside of Shiloh. You did. You transgressed. So why would you do that? You obviously felt you needed a stronger connection, so you broke the law. You broke the law.
In their eyes.
No, they did break the law. Again, they broke the law. They built a mizbeach.
Right.
So they broke the law. So now, if you're breaking the law, obviously the land of possession, if it's unclean, and that's what's causing this, come back into the light, where you feel God's presence. That's what they're saying. It's an important thing because, and by the way, Rashi is going with what you're asking too. He says, "Im tamei eretz chuzechem shelo bachar kadosh baruch hu l'shol ba shechinato." Hashem did not choose to have His divine presence dwell in this part of the land. You asked for it. You asked.
Are they on the east side of the Jordan?
They're in Jordanian territory.
Yeah.
What we would call Jordan today.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're on the opposite side. So remember, they asked God. They asked Moshe. We have there's farmland. We have animals, grazing land. Excuse me. There's grazing land. We have animals. This is great for us.
They camped there before crossing the Jordan.
They said, "Can we have this land?" And God, Moshe went to God. God said, "Gesundheit. You want that land? Take that land." Okay, so it became part of Greater Israel.
It's interesting that they're on the east side of the Jordan, but they built the altar on the west side.
That was the land. It was the west side.
The west of Israel. They built it right.
Yeah, they built it on the west side of the Jordan, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. So where would that be in there?
That's not even their land. They're building it on somebody else's land.
Oh, okay. So I'm all confused when it comes to these east-west. I'm all confused by these things. But it's so no, they must have built on their land then. Which, if I'm looking from Israel, is Jordan my west or my east?
East.
Jordan's my east. If I'm on Israel,
huh?
If I'm in Israel,
yeah, Jordan's to the east.
Yeah, Jordan.
So Jordan's my west.
East.
Jordan's my east.
Yeah, it'd be east.
So I'm building it.
East.
Okay, so I
that's why they call it the West Bank, because it's the West Bank of the Jordan. Right. That's what the West Bank is. Is the original part of Israel.
Right. But that's what's happening. I mean, that's what they're arguing. Yeah. I hear. It's very, like I said, geography was never my strong suit. I mean, I have a hard time figuring out where I am in South End. So. But it's but that's what they're seeing. I remember. So but that's the point. If the land where you're living, because you asked for it, God didn't give it to us originally. You asked for it. Obviously, it's not good enough for you that you're building this altar. So come back home. And I like how they say you're rebelling against God and you're rebelling against us. I mean, you may end up rebelling against us. They don't want that. And the commentary Daishish is saying like this. It says, however, if you had no idolatrous intentions, but intend to build a private altar to God, then if the land of your possession is unclean, not fit for building an altar, even a Bama Katana or a private altar, as distinct from a communal altar, for the Holy One, blessed be He, did not choose it to cause His presence to rest thereon. So since the tabernacle was not built on the eastern side of the Jordan. So don't rebel against God to build an altar outside of the central sanctuary of Shiloh, since it's forbidden. And don't rebel against us. If you meant to demonstrate political independence, we don't want that. It's not good. Okay, so he says, now we go to Achan. Halo Achan ben Zerach. You have the case of Achan, the son of Zerach, Ma'al B'cherem, who committed a trespass with a devoted thing. That was when people lost. V'al kol adat Yisrael hayakatzef, and again, all of Bnei Yisrael, the congregation of Israel, God was angry at. V'hu ish echad, and he was one man. V'lo gava ba'avono, and that man did not perish alone in his iniquity. It took all of us. So again, with all of that said, 36 men at I. Okay, 36 it says. Not 7. I don't know why I always think of 70, but it's 36 men. So 36 men died in I. He said again, because of Kol Yisrael, Reuven Imza. So everybody's is that business. So all of us are connected, and therefore, if you're doing something wrong, Hashem is going to get us, and we'll have to stop there. We'll stop it right at the response. 21.